Hi, good afternoon, and welcome again to Mansfield Today. Right, this is especially for you younger people, students, and parents of kids who are writing papers, research papers. If you're doing a thesis, if you're doing a hard piece of work that has to be reported on, analyses, etc., we're going to speak about plagiarism. Right, so plagiarism, by definition, is when you use a copyrighted piece of work and or somebody else's IP and you publish, produce it, or present it under your name as if you had done it yourself. That's in its simplest form. It goes a lot further, and let's start at the beginning here. Guys, you can be prosecuted for this and you can get into a serious lot of trouble. Very important that you're aware of this. Now let's take a step back. You remember some while ago we spoke about patents, copyrights, authors' rights, and the like. I'm just going to focus only on copyright now. There is no formal procedure to go and copyright a document, a piece of work, etc., as opposed to a patent and so on. To copyright, you put a C with a circle around it, you put there copyrighted and the year, and it is yours. My first warning, make sure it is yours. Check, balance, make no assumptions. This is especially if it's not produced for university, college, a paper for your thesis, for your doctorate, your master's, your dissertation for your master's, an honors paper. Or what happens now, which I do support at institutions and universities, that regularly you have to hand in a piece of work that involves research yourself. Right, so what is the problem that's happening nowadays? And a lot of you know this, but for parents who don't yet, and your children are now going to university next year or this year starting, when you hand in a piece of work, most of these institutions have artificial intelligence that'll pull out and say, has somebody else done this piece of work already? And the going rate is if more than 30% of what you have produced pops out of this artificial intelligence or out of this computer, then you are in serious, serious trouble. Generally, these institutions allow 5% to play with because some things do overlap. Now, I have two friends who work with me here in the studio, Jared Clegg and Danny Brown, both youngsters, recently finished their university studies, and we had this debate. And Jared brought up something important. He put a first draft forward of a piece of work that he did. It went in, and then he and all the students had to then move to the second draft. The second draft, he just updated his own work. The university came through and said, hang on a second, this is plagiarism, and plagiarism by Jared Clegg. Of course, he had to go and sort it out. But that's how sensitive this AI is and how difficult it is. And sometimes it doesn't pick it up at all. So here are a few pointers. One, as far as humanly possible, do your own work. But in doing your work, you're a student. You study works of others. You read work of others. You get a grip on it. When you take that work of others, okay, make sure you document and write and put footnotes saying, this is the work of John Brown. This is the work of James Bond. And you capture it, all right? And you refer to it. It's not yours. You know, there are some guys who've done doctorates, and I know one guy particularly I used to work with. He took a whole lot of other people's doctorate thesis in a certain topic, and he took the best out of each of them and put it together on a related topic. And he got his PhD. He's now a doctor, and fantastic. But he had to refer each time that it wasn't his work. His work was the compilation of all this other work. Now, when you do a thesis at a very high level, you're doing either when I did my MBA, I had to do a master's dissertation. At that time, and long ago, this is when when I was very young, and so it's a long, long time ago. But in those days, you had two options. You either had to create something completely new and independent, or you could go and very detailed research work done on the topic which your professor allows you to follow through with. And then you could go and research a number of papers, dissertations, documents, theses of other people, and you take those, and together you come to a conclusion. The conclusion must be new and fresh. That's the important thing. But to get there, you have to have read everybody else's as well. So my fear, what's happening, is that especially young people doing these papers, doing these documents for their universities, are becoming more and more frightened to use other people's stuff, and they start making up stuff. Don't. Couple of hints, please, guys. I want you all to do well. I want you to succeed. You must read other people's stuff. There's a lot of good information out there, and some of it goes far back. You're allowed to use it, but refer to it and say where you found it and say why you are using it. And if you think it is bollocks, say, I disagree with this for the following reason. You are allowed to as well. You have been put on a platform where you are allowed to give your opinion. It's your piece of work. So the whole time, remember, it's your piece of work, albeit that you do refer to other documents. Finally, what would I put forward? I would say that this is a really good way of studying, and I think it's more advanced than many, many years ago, where all you did was given a lot of theory, you wrote exams, and you either passed or failed the exam, and in some cases you got to rewrite, and it goes on and on and on. I think research studying is extremely helpful, and I think a big step forward. I don't move away from the fact that there is some things you have to know. There are basics you have to know. You have to know that 1 + 1 = 2. You have to know it, right? You have to know it, and you have to know how to use it, okay? You have to know what the square root of 22 is. You have to know it. You have to know why you use that. But when you're taking on a topic, embracing it, and putting forward your final opinion, please note, your opinion, your answer, your conclusion, it is imperative that you do research other people's work who've been through this before, because if you don't, you are amiss. You are amiss. You're missing the point. And that's important. And for those of you who are tutors, lecturers, professors, some of you guys who are professors are friends of mine, and we still work on topics nowadays. Guys, please start early with your student in that course, in that year, and explain to them it's imperative that they do read other people's work. They recognize what they've done in their work, and most importantly, they must own it as their own work when they come to the conclusion, the inferences they make, and feel free to give your own opinion. And then in your context, state, this is the opinion of Jared Clegg. This is my opinion. I've read all the rest. Say it. Be clear. Avoid the uncomfortable situation where you get called in and somebody says, this was actually somebody else's work. And you say, no, but I did refer to it there. It was. And I actually agree with it. So you can say, this was Mary's work, and I agree with it, and I'm using it in my piece of work to go forward. Right? Be safe. Thank you for listening. Please, to parents, to tutors, and to you youngsters, listen to what I've said here. Use it with confidence and strength. You be confident. You're allowed to do your own stuff. Don't miss out on what other people have done before. You can learn from that. Thank you. Have a great week.